You're listening to TALRadio, the information and entertainment arm of the Touch a Life Foundation. On TALRadio, the Touch a Life Foundation shares stories of kindness and information on how we can connect those persons around the world who might be in need of assistance with those parties who are generous enough to offer it. And today on the Robert Hicks Show, we have Linda Tannenbaum, the founder and CEO president of the Open Medicine Foundation. Thanks for coming on to TALRadio, Linda.
Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. And so, as I mentioned earlier, about TALRadio is all about connecting organizations that are willing to be charitably giving and organizations that can use their help. So we wanted to connect with the Open Medicine Foundation to learn a bit about you, Linda, but also learn about your organization and, you know, how our listeners and charitable persons can be of some assistance to help you in your mission. But tell us a little bit, if you would, Linda, about your background and how long you've been with the Open Medicine Foundation, please.
Well, thank you. My background is in laboratory medicine. I am a clinical laboratory scientist and ran a medical laboratory for over 20 years. And I started Open Medicine Foundation over 10 years ago. So I've been with it since its beginning and before its beginning. So we started it in 2012. So it's been over now this is our 11th year.
Exciting. So you, as you mentioned, you founded the Open Medicine Foundation. And tell us a little bit about the story. I was seeing this on your website, a bit about the story that caused the creation of the Open Medicine Foundation, because that's something very personal to you, right?
Yes, it is, actually. I mean, I was a desperate parent with a sick daughter, and I decided to start it with initial focus of msCFS, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis, or chronic fatigue syndrome, as a lot of people know it. And our daughter, when she was 16, became very sick suddenly, and we didn't know what it was, and the doctors didn't know how to diagnose it or treat it, and she quit school, and she was out of high school, 11th and 12th grade, in bed. And in researching it, because of my background in laboratory medicine, I realized and was able to research that nobody was coming up with a treatment or diagnosis because there wasn't any money for research and the government wasn't researching it. So somebody had to do something. So I love your invitation to me, which is basically sympathy to empathy. And basically, we found out that there were over 20 million people in the world that had something like this chronic fatigue syndrome. And I realized that something needed to be done in a bigger way. So I started this foundation to be able to figure out how we can treat this. How do we diagnose this? What is this? Because we went to over 20 different doctors and no doctors knew what to do with this disease. And here my daughter was in bed and wanted to get her life back, and there was no path to do so. So I founded this foundation to bring together researchers to fast track research. And so we have set this up 10 years ago and grew it over 10 years. And now we have a whole setup of researchers that are researching this disease. And sadly, long COVID, which makes this more relevant right now, probably 50% of people who are still sick after having COVID have this same disease or symptoms very similar to this disease. So now it's even more relevant because there's many, many more millions of people who are not able to work, not able to go to school. It hits kids as well as adults, and they're in bed and the doctors don't know what to do with them. And it's the same, very, very similar or same disease. And so we are really looking for answers here to find treatments and a cure, of course, and how to diagnose this and really help people all over the world.
So you started in 2012, and you basically registered the Open Medicine Foundation as a California 501c3 nonprofit to accelerate research for, as you mentioned, you started out with msCFS, but now it's even spread to working with other long-term diseases, right?
Yes, many post-infection diseases, very common, where people have an infection and don't get well, and it becomes chronic, or other reasons for chronic complex diseases, which we call it. Multi-system chronic complex diseases is what we call it. Mhm.
How did that play out, if I may ask, for your daughter? Did this help you out a great deal in dealing with your own personal situation?
Well, thank you for asking. Not the foundation itself, but our daughter is, she has improved enough that I'm able to do this, and so she's doing better. She needs a cure, but she's doing better. So I'm not her caregiver anymore, and she's doing okay. But as we found out, most people are not as lucky as she is. That most people are still in bed, and maybe 5% get well like her. She was just one of the lucky ones that was able to improve, and which allowed me to do this. But it really made it clear when we started meeting many more patients that, somebody still has to do something, because there's no answers for most of them.
So a lot of people dealing similarly to what you were back 10 years ago, right?
Well, in the United States, numbers estimated at least 2.5 million people, and worldwide over 20 million. And now with long COVID, way over, they recommend that they estimate 65 million over in the world, people suffering with these kind of diseases, these complex diseases.
So when you talk about these complex diseases, you mentioned, I'm going to call it msCCD.
Yes,
because I can't say it as well as you.
But that's what we call it.
But some other chronic diseases that you're working in support of, one is fibromyalgia, right?
Yes, and another post-treatment Lyme disease. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lyme disease syndrome, and also long COVID, as you mentioned, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what these individual diseases are, like fibromyalgia, for example?
Well, fibromyalgia, unfortunately, is a very common, maybe over 5 million in the U.S. and obviously many more around the world have this disease, which really is constant pain, and so many people have extreme fatigue and are really unable to do what they used to do before they got these diseases. And these are really multi-system diseases, so it causes a lot of problems, a lot of extreme fatigue, cognitive dysfunction. People refer to it as brain fog, widespread pain all over, really disabling type symptoms that prevent you from working, going to school, and prevent you from doing what you used to do. And so these diseases are very common in how they manifest themselves. And so what we're hoping is, we've been focusing on msCCD and hoping that what we learn and what all of the science and the research that we're doing really helps all of these diseases, because it manifests very similar symptoms to this, debilitating fatigue. You're in bed, it's hard to get up, it's hard to do things. There's a hallmark of the msCCD called post-exertional malaise. That is something that with any type of exertion, whether it's physical or even mental or emotional, can exasperate all of these symptoms in a way that you might not happen this moment, but if you brush your teeth or take a shower right now, in hours from now or tomorrow or within 48 hours, you could be bedridden just from doing that. And it's called post-exertional malaise, which is something that's horrible and debilitating that keeps many people at home.
So if I was following you correctly, are you saying that the symptomology is pretty common among the various, like the msCCD, fibromyalgia, the post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, and the long COVID, similar symptoms across all of them? Is that true?
Yes, very similar. They cross over very similar symptoms. When they write down symptoms and estimate symptoms, there's probably over 60 or so different symptoms people have, sadly. But there's some core symptoms that really cross over, that if we could really help those symptoms, we really could help a lot of people with these different but related symptoms and diseases.
What is long COVID? What is that? What is meant by the term long COVID?
Good question. There's different definitions all around, but for people who have had a COVID infection, and the government, I believe, calls it anything over 4 weeks of still sick. But in the research world, what we're seeing is people who've had even asymptomatic or mild COVID in a month or two afterwards start having these symptoms crop up, and they don't know why yet, of these symptoms with extreme fatigue and with cognitive dysfunction. Brain fog is a big problem. They call it, they have this other types of dizziness, and people don't feel as well when they're standing up versus when they're lying down. They call it POTS. But there's these symptoms that are very similar that kick in after 4 weeks of being okay. You think that you have recovered from COVID, and suddenly a month or two afterwards, something kicks in and you don't know what it is. And it's basically a post-infection syndrome that kicks in. And it's being referred to as long COVID. There's other names that they're giving it. It started off with calling like long haulers, meaning I'm still sick. Why am I still sick? But then they found out that people that, didn't even have symptoms suddenly start having these major symptoms that are keeping them home and debilitating. So they're calling it long COVID. There's other problems, cardiovascular problems, pulmonary problems, neurological problems, and then these kind of problems with extreme fatigue and cognitive dysfunction. So there's different reasons that the body is reacting this way. And the estimate is possibly 50% of those people that are sick might have the symptoms that are similar to ME/CFS.
Yeah, and I think on the subject of long COVID, I think I've had it. I think I've experienced exactly what you're describing, because I've had COVID symptoms on 3 different occasions.
Oh, wow.
Where it affected me. But one of the times I did feel that brain fog, and it just was persisting, and you just feel like it just went on and on and on. It just, you feel like, I don't feel like I'm sick, but I feel less capacitated than I did before. It's like, I just feel, somewhat foggy compared to what I'm used to feeling. And so I mean, not like right now so much, but for a long while, I did seem like I felt that. So I know kind of exactly what you're talking about.
Unless you've really experienced it, you really don't understand how serious it is and how it prevents you from doing your normal activities, right? Or your work activities. You don't notice that. And so exactly what you're talking about. In fact, we're doing a clinical trial. We're going to be starting a clinical trial very soon with ME/CFS patients, again, similar to long COVID, to try to reduce that neurocognitive issues, and this brain fog, because it's a major problem across all these multi-system chronic diseases.
So when we look at the Open Medicine Foundation today, I was reading on your website that basically you are leading the largest worldwide nonprofit effort to diagnose, treat, and prevent the chronic complex diseases like the ones we've named, right?
Yes.
So how many employees or members, or however you would characterize the people involved in what you do, how many persons are involved?
So, we try to run very lean because we want the money to go to research. And so we work very hard with a wonderful staff. And so we have 5 actual employees, and we work with a couple independent contractors that work with us. And then we work with a number of volunteers that help us behind the scenes. As far as a team at specifically working with Open Medicine Foundation. But what we've set up here is we actually have 6 collaborative research centers that we have set up and support at top universities. And so we have research centers. So we work with researchers that are part of our OMF Scientific Advisory Board. We have a 19-member scientific advisory board, and of those, we have our directors of our collaborative research centers. And so we're at Harvard, and we're at Stanford, we're at University of Montreal, University of Uppsala in Sweden, and University of Melbourne. And we have these centers. And so we have directors of the centers that are part of our team. And they have researchers, of course, under them that work with them. And so there's many, many people that work with us. We really are in 4 countries on 3 continents doing research and working together. So we have a team for the foundation, but it basically is a much larger group of people and scientists that work with us from their universities. And we fund what they're doing, a lot of what they're doing, and we facilitate open collaborative research with them.
I want to remind our listeners across the globe that you are listening to TALRadio from the Touch a Life Foundation. And TALRadio and the foundation itself is all about giving back, essentially, and finding ways to find organizations that can use the help of generous people in missions like we're discussing here today with Linda Tannenbaum. We do want to remind our listeners that if you go to the download the TAL Giving app, TAL is T-A-L for Touch a Life, but there's an app called TAL Giving. It's a platform to help organizations like the Open Medicine Foundation and so many others. So we want to encourage our listeners to go to the Apple App Store, or you can go to the Google Play Store to download that app. And whether you are a generous person or a person that can use help from others, we want to encourage you, maybe you're both of those, but certainly we want to encourage you to register on the TAL Giving app. I'm Robert Hicks, and this is the Robert Hicks Show. And basically, Linda, do you have a particular scope or geographic limitation to your organization? I know you've got global points, but is there any way that you define any limitation to the work that you do?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. No, actually, we are people follow us basically from way over 100 countries. And so what we try to do is engage the world at large, really. Unfortunately, these diseases, have no boundaries. And so we raise money from all over the world, and we do research, as you see, from our collaborative centers that are in 4 different countries. And then we encourage participation in those from all over the world. In fact, we're just literally setting up a participant registry so that people all over the world could sign up as a participant to answer surveys, help with research, be involved with research from their home or research in projects that are in their locality. And so we are encouraging people global to follow us, just to have hope, to know that somebody's working on this, because a lot of people just, what you're doing, which is wonderful, what you're doing here is sharing what people are how people are helping people, basically. And we're at the point that we really want to share hope and let people know that are sick that there are people working on this. And now that there's so many more people that are sick with long COVID, we want people to understand and know that there are many researchers working on this, and we're trying to pull it all together, if possible, to speed it up and accelerate it. We appreciate it. We've raised over $40 million in 10 years, and it's all from private giving. And all the private giving is coming from people who are sick or know people who are sick, and they have loved ones who are sick. And we're trying to fund as much research as possible to accelerate this. And we've been able to do more than 50 different research projects that are bringing answers that we hope will help the millions of people out there that are suffering here.
I want to talk a little bit. Now, you're based in California, right?
Yes,
OMF is based
in the Los Angeles suburbs, although all of our people work remotely. So we have people, all over that are working with us.
Yeah, like everyone else, we're all able to work from various locations. Thank goodness. But so I want to mention to our listeners, there's a number of places where the Open Medicine Foundation can be found. And if you want to go to the website, it's www.omf, like Open Medicine Foundation, .ngo. but there are also websites specifically for Canada, as well as one for Australia. So the one is omfcanada.ngo, and one is omfaustralia.ngo. Did I get that right?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we've set that up so that if people live in those areas, they can give and get a tax deduction as well as in the United States. So we set specifically them up as charities also, so that if people are giving, they can give in and get a tax deduction. Otherwise, they're the same information on the websites.
Okay. So let's talk about specifically what can our listeners do with and for the Open Medicine Foundation. What are some of the ways that we can help out?
No, I appreciate you asking. So of course, we're always looking for people who know people who would like to help us fund these large research projects, and any donations help us keep going and build up and increase the research that we're doing. We're trying to do some major clinical trials, and obviously, those cost millions. But anything helps, and so we ask our listeners, if possible, if they know of anybody to connect us to that might be interested to help us accelerate this and donate, would be wonderful. Obviously, we're looking for cryptocurrency, for stocks, any type of cash donations, all of the above. We can accept all types of donations and give tax donations in the U.S. and Canada and Australia as well. But all around the world, we accept donations from everywhere, of course. And we have some paths in Europe as well. So we are looking for that. And then we're looking for people just to share what we're doing, to share the hope. And if they know somebody who's sick, please tell them that people are very serious and validate that they're sick. These diseases have a problem of doctors not validating that people are sick, and they think that if they, stay home and rest or take antidepressants or something like that, they'll get better, and that is not what this is. So we want to validate that people are sick and understand it and know that we are really trying to work on this. And then when we launch our registry, which will be in a couple of weeks from now, if you come back to us and you can sign up for the registry if you are sick and you would like to help. The more people that sign up for the registry, it's a simple few-minute sign up. It's really just saying, do you want to answer surveys? Do you want to answer questions? Do you want to give us information, or researchers' information, not us, but researchers who are doing projects to help accelerate this research, because it's going to take the world at large to figure all this out. So talk about it, tell people about it, and share your stories and share us, if possible, however you can. Get the word out about the disease and get the word out about Open Medicine Foundation. That would really help.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to encourage our listeners to go to your website. You will be surprised at the many ways, as Linda mentioned, that you can be a contributor to the mission of the Open Medicine Foundation. They'll take donations online. You can do a check. You can do it over the phone. Linda mentioned stock transfers can be done, a Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, wire transfers. They've even got a program where you can give in honor of someone or in memory of someone that has passed. I also was reading where you can look into your employer and see how they support charitable giving, because a lot of times employers will offer things like employer matching gifts, right?
Exactly.
Where they'll also add to what the individuals are contributing.
Exactly. No, I appreciate you mentioning all that. Yes, we do get a lot of employer matches, which is wonderful. And we have another platform on our website if you're interested. If you want to do your own fundraisers, it's called Crowd Change. You sign up. It's very simple. And then you can email your friends and family and tell your story. And then it has a way that they can click and donate. And so it makes it very simple if you'd like to do that. And then people go on Facebook if they have a birthday or something, and they randomly go on Facebook, so they can just say, for my birthday, if you want to donate, $5, $10 to this, I'm sick and we need help and we want to accelerate this. I appreciate that. And I wanted to mention just one thing, if I can, as far as helping people who are sick. On our website, we have medical education and resources for patients,
Yeah.
and resources to be able to bring to your doctor if you are sick, resources that if you're a parent of somebody who is sick, resources for doctors to become more educated about what this is, ways to diagnose and notice and validate these symptoms, and some treatment ideas. So this information is very helpful if you are sick and you need to bring information to your doctor, or you are a doctor and you'd like more information.
And don't assume that your doctor is well versed in these things.
Most are not, actually.
Yeah.
So we want
yeah.
we're helping to educate also.
It's pretty surprising. And what you mentioned about the fundraising, I saw on the website where there's actually a digital fundraising toolkit that you make available that has things like easy to use guides for launching fundraisers or Facebook or crowd change, or even an in-person event. That's interesting to know. You can donate, if you've ever heard of when you're shopping, you have there's a thing called Amazon Smile. eBay does something similar. iGive is another one where you can have whatever you are shopping for, percentage goes to assist the Open Medicine Foundation. Donating your car, you've heard of that before, but it's another thing that you may not immediately think of. And also, you can do what they call planned giving, which is all about something that is set up for taking your legacy and your what do you want to call it? Your generous giving, even beyond the time that you're with us. You actually can consider a charitable legacy to continue your philanthropy beyond your full life. So, like I say, so many ways that people can help the Open Medicine Foundation, and certainly. Is there anything that people might? This is kind of an unusual question, but anything that might surprise people the most about the work that you do? Anything that comes to mind there that you'd want to make us aware of?
Well, I think what makes us unique, if anybody knows how research really works and how diseases really are studied, we have broken the mold in changing the way that people do it. So most researchers and the research world, they do their research and they publish and they have their expertise and they work somewhat in silos, meaning that they work with a team and they do what they do and they write these publications and let people know what they do. Instead, what we do is we bring people together, and those that we fund have to share their results openly while they're doing it, and way before publication. So we bring people together. We have meetings every month with our directors. They discuss their research. They discuss what they're seeing. And it really makes it much more efficient. So that way people don't waste their time. They know what people are learning from each other. And it accelerates research, and it's an open collaboration. And those words aren't usually synonymous with research. And so what we're trying to do is bring people together in a way so that everybody has different expertise and they see things differently. They're looking at different things and they're doing their own research and their own projects, but they share it. And we have symposiums that we have that then the researchers talk to each other in basically in private, so to speak, but there's 90 or so people together. But talking really, and with Zoom, it really helped to do things digitally now. And so we can really bring people from all over the world, but sharing their results openly. And we work with other organizations that also do research and advocacy and try to work with the government to fund larger projects in this space. And so we are trying to do a lot, but focus on medical research so we can really bring people together openly and collaborating. And then we just launched this medical education program with the Bateman Horne Center, who's doing medical education to train more primary care physicians as well. So we're unique in this space. We're the largest in this space, but we are unique in this space in trying to bring it all together to accelerate it to get people better, basically.
Neat. Linda, there's one last thing I'd like to ask you as we wrap up our conversation here. And again, we're talking to Linda Tannenbaum, the founder and CEO, president of the Open Medicine Foundation. Question I want to ask you, let's go inside Linda Tannenbaum. You've been at this quite a while. What has this done to you, done for you, I should say? You personally being involved in this, what have you kind of gotten out of it? Just want you to share those feelings a little bit, if you don't mind.
That's an interesting question. I keep saying I'm going to write the book called Serendipity, because I have met wonderful people along the way. And each step along the way has been a learning experience, because I didn't anticipate being in the world I'm in with this foundation. It wasn't a career choice. It was a necessity at the time. But I have met, the most wonderful thing that has happened to me is meeting the people and along the way, both people who are suffering with these diseases and researchers and people that have wanted to help, and like yourself, and helping the cause that affects so many people. And so I think the thing that I've received the most from it is the feeling of goodness of people and how wonderful people are that work together. And with the things that are going around in the world, it is wonderful to be able to have people like yourself bring this to the front and talk about the good things that are happening in life. And the good things that are happening is people do want to help each other and as much as possible if they can. And so I have gotten a lot of reward from doing this, in knowing that we're bringing people hope, and we're saving lives by doing that, because unfortunately, it's a disease that is devastating to people, and so we want to bring hope to those people. So knowing that, and people do thank us all the time, it's a wonderful feeling that we are continuing to work on.
That's really neat. And there's a method to my madness when I ask a question like that. Number one, so many of us in our work lives, wonder, where's this going? What am I contributing? You're fortunate in that something that you have such a passion about, you are in it every day and you get to feel that way and all that. So, but not everybody has that in their life's work. But one of the things too is I want to invite our listeners what Touch a Life Foundation is all about, and the Tau Giving app is we want to encourage you to participate in that, because the feelings that Linda was just describing are things that you too can feel as you're supporting their organization. And that's why I ask, what do you get out of it in your heart, essentially, because our listeners can get that too by being contributors. Absolutely. So, Linda, I want to thank you very much for joining me today for the Robert Hicks Show. We thank Linda Tannenbaum, the founder and CEO, president of the Open Medicine Foundation. She was good enough to meet with us today to share the story of the Open Medicine Foundation. I'm Robert Hicks. We also want to thank you, our listeners, for spending time with us today, and most of all for your generous nature in following us at the Touch of Life Foundation and TALRadio. So stay with us on TALRadio for additional uplifting stories as we continue to bring them to you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you so much.